But in any case, let me share with you just a backdrop as to what I see every day at school. For those of you guys who don't know, I actually go to school. I go to a Christian university, and when I have to walk across this big red brick building, it's called Metzger Building, and when I walk by it, they're actually an office that's on the bottom end that the window is actually showing. And every time I walk by, I've been at this school for probably over 10 years. Okay, maybe more than 10 years, about 15 years. I've been there, and every time I walk by, I see at the edge of the glass window is like a shelf. And on that shelf is a collection of Coke bottles, Coca-Cola bottles. And if you look closely, it's not simply Coca-Cola bottles that you just buy off the market locally, but they're Coke bottles that are found practically all over the world. If you look closely, there's actually a Coke bottle that's written in Korean. There's a Coke bottle that's written in Bolivian. There's actually a Coke bottle that's written in Ethiopian. Like there's like Coke bottles and cans from all over the world. And it's an amazing thing because when you think about it, how many of you guys here drink Coke? Most of you guys here drink Coke, and it's pretty alarming, but let me share with you some information about how far Coke bottles have gone. They've gone to Ethiopia, Australia, Thailand, Tahiti, Kenya, East Africa, India, Beijing, Singapore, Guam, and plethora of other cities. You can go to a village that doesn't have electricity, but they still drink Coke. You can go to a village that has been even not reached by just the common things of this world, like computers, and yet you can find a bottle of Coke. And it's an amazing thing how, if you give any credit, it's the company, within that company, the advertising, that they've spent such an amazing amount of time in figuring out how can we allow this bottle, this product, to be placed in the hands of people outside of the US. And they spend probably millions and millions of dollars, but you might go to different countries and you're thinking, wow, can I even find a bottle of water? You might not, but sure as heck, you're going to actually find a bottle of Coke. They've achieved their purpose. Their goal is to put in the hands of people all around the world this product. Now, is this product a very good product? Do you know Coca-Cola as a product that you enjoy and it's actually good for your body? Not really. If you look at every single can of Coke, it's going to have at least about 30 grams of sugar. Do you know what Coke is made of? You don't know, do you? It's this black syrupy stuff, but when you drink it, it's refreshing, and yet you don't have a clue what it's made out of. But let me read to you some interesting facts as to how people oftentimes use this particular product. It says in many states, highway patrol cars carry 2 gallons of Coke in the trunk. These are police officers. They carry 2 gallons of Coke in their trunk. For what reason? Is to remove blood from the highway after a car accident. So if there's blood on the freeway, right, they pour Coke to dissolve the blood. It says if you can put T-bone steak in a bowl of Coke, the steak will be gone in 2 days. That means the Coke, the substance within the Coke will actually eat away at the meat. So in 2 days' time, you go check it out, all you used to see is just a bone. You drink this stuff on a regular basis, right? Your body is similar to meat. I wonder what it's doing inside of you, but to clean a toilet, it says pour a can of Coke into a toilet bowl, let it sit for an hour, then flush it clean. Give it a shot. Go home, find a Coke, pour it into your toilet bowl, and it's amazing how it can actually clean your toilet. To loosen a rusted bolt, apply a cloth soaked in Coke and rub it on top of it for several minutes, and you'll see that rust go away. To remove grease from clothes, empty a can of Coke into a load of greasy clothes and add detergent, of course, wash it, and it helps remove grease from your clothes. The active agent or the ingredient in Coke is phosphoric acid. Its pH is 2.8, and it says it will dissolve a nail. This is metal. It will dissolve a nail in about 4 days. To carry Coca-Cola, the syrup, the concentrated, you know, when you go into like Carl's Jr.'s, they actually have a concentrated version of it, and they mix it with, soda water. The commercial truck must use, you know that sign that says hazardous material? To carry a concentrated amount of Coke, they have to actually put, it's by law, hazardous material. Why? Because that material is highly corrosive. The distributor of Coke have been using it to clean the engine of their truck for more than 20 years, and this is the stuff that you drink, right? And yet it is advertised over and over again. And you know, nowadays, of course, they use sex and all that kind of stuff to sell things. But when I was younger, they had commercials of Coke, and it was clean, it was pure, and it really wanted to make you want to drink Coke. So I want you to imagine for a moment a commercial, right? A commercial where a man is working out in the yard, right? And he's got those big old, overall suspenders on, and he's worked and he's come. He's taking a break. Then sure enough, you see a cooler next to you. And you rummage through, and you wipe away all the ice off that can of Coke, and you know it's a hot, scorching day, sweat glistening off of that guy's brows. And of course, they zoom in on this logo, right? And then they make sure that you hear this sound. And of course, you hear it, but as you're hearing the gulp. Then what do you hear? That just hits the spot, doesn't it? We don't know what it's made of. But I just told you that it eats away at nails, and it could eat away at meat, but it's good, right? And it's a highly corrosive material, but it's in a can, and it's well advertised. So you go play outside, and afterwards, just like the commercial, right? It's just a wonderful feeling to dip your hand in that cooler, pull this thing out, and you could hear that psh, right? And for you to drink it. It's an amazing thing. You know what you just went through? You just went through a story. That 20-second commercial that you saw was actually a story of a man. He comes out, he's tired, and he's worn out from a day's worth of work, and he needs something to refresh him. So you see the need, I want something refreshing. And he doesn't pull out a bottle of water. He doesn't pull out Kool-Aid. He pulls out a can of freezing, ice-cold can of Coke. And when he drinks that, it satisfies. Because you know, you don't go, after you drink hanyak, do you? If you do, you got issues, right? Like, I love hanyak. No, right? You do that with a can of Coke. And advertisement is such a powerful thing because it's done such a good job that literally Coca-Cola is known throughout the world. But I want to share with you a passage that hopefully would reflect a truth that would resonate in your life. If you can turn to Romans chapter 1, I'm going to read to you guys just one verse. Actually, we'll read from verse 16 of chapter 1. And that's the central verse that I want you to focus on. But this verse is the verse that I've mentioned over and over again because this is something that I do not see in the lives of people your age and the lives of people, actually, of any age. Especially when it comes to a comparison between this thing called Coke and this thing called the gospel message. Romans chapter 1, verse 16, it says, I am not ashamed of the gospel because it is the power of God for the salvation of everyone who believes, first for the Jews, then for the Gentiles. That is the gospel message in its shortness. Paul wrote this book, and he says, I am not ashamed of the gospel. Why? Because it has the ability to save. Save what? Save the most precious thing that you can ever hold, and that is your soul. It says that is the power of God to save lives, to save souls. And he says because it has that ability to save souls, he says, I am not ashamed. And he says he's willing to preach to Jews and to non-Jews alike because he knows that the message is such a powerful message, but he knows that the message is a very positive message. I wonder if we had a team of people who work at this Coca-Cola company, and if we gathered that group of advertising people and we work with them and say, hey, can you help us promote the gospel? I'm pretty sure if we poured in $100 million or so, that they'll say, okay, we'll find a way. Oh yeah, in every can of Coke, we'll write a verse that says, Jesus loves you, Jesus saves, and if you believe in Jesus, you'll go to heaven. Because, that would really help, right? Because every time you go to In-N-Out, under the cup, it says what? John 3:16, right? And the curiosity factor, everyone just goes, oh, it's there, right? But what if, because Coke is basically all around the world, what if they actually took a Bible verse and put it on the can? Would that somehow convey the gospel message? But honest to goodness, I don't think I would like that. I wouldn't want that because it's a mixture of message, right? Because this is bad for you, and yet you put the gospel message, which is good for you, together, it's going to be a bit confusing. But I wonder, when it comes to us as Christians, do we really need an advertising company to promote this gospel? Do we need to pour in millions of dollars to somehow convey a message? Because, what I've discovered is if you are actually a believer of something, you do not need to get paid to share that message. If you've gone through something and you've tasted of something really good, you can't help but to share it. I guarantee you the people that went to Peru, they had a positive experience. And they would come to me and say, you know what, I want to grab anybody and I actually want to share with them what went on in Peru. That's such an awesome thing because they experienced something so positive that they couldn't help but to share it. Is the gospel message in your heart and is so passionate that you can't help but to share it? Let me share you a picture. I just showed you a picture of what it looks like when it comes to this Coke commercial. Do you notice every time you see a commercial and they're drinking it, somehow they're making sure that this emblem is always visible, right? Every time they drink it, there it is. This is what I'm drinking. On this side, let me share with you what it looks like when it comes to our faith. There is a desperate need and a thirst. The Bible talks about that. But rather than pulling out the can, or you say, hey, right? Because as soon as I opened up that can and I drank of it, your face, the moment I said, you had a grin on your face. And you were a believer. If I say, Andrew, do you want one of these things? Right? Did you see Andrew say, no, I don't want it. I just heard information that it's corrosive and it's going to eat away at my inside and that's bad for me. If I had a can of Coke and I handed it to every single person, do you think, he just said yay. Do you think any of you guys would say no? Maybe some of you guys who are on a soda fast or you're on a diet and you say, no, that's bad for me. But if I hand it to the majority of you guys, you'd be like, okay, I'll take one, right? But simply the advertising is done itself. You tasted of it and you enjoy it and you're a believer, right? If this happens to be the gospel message and it represents you and you own it, rather than you showing the emblem and drinking from it, imagine this is the gospel message. This is what it looks like in your lives. You don't have a clue. Nobody has a clue what you just drank. The only person that knows is you. And every time you pull it out, you're sure enough, once in a while, you cover it like this so people don't have, they figure, oh, what's that black stuff? It might be Coke, but you cover everything you can cover, and you try to make the least amount of sound, and you drink of it. But that's in the midst of your friends who are at school who are not Christians, and you do this so well. You become a professional at it, so whenever you pull out of it, without you even have to go, is there anything covering? You've already covered it easily. You walk around with it. Your faith is yours. You keep it in your pocket, you pull it out. And the only time that you actually expose of what you have in you is when you come to church, right? So when you come to church, all of a sudden you say, hey, I got one. You got one too? Yeah, hold on, wait. Oh, wow, yeah, one. I could taste of it. This is wonderful, right? And then you go back to school, and then it's back to this again. Oh, shoot, it's fizzing too much. I better keep it back down, right? That's just a physical illustration of what your life looks like when it comes to your relationship with Jesus, right? Paul says, I am not ashamed. There's something about him that he's so confident, he's bold at. If this was Paul, it wouldn't be like this commercial where he's just like, right? If it was Paul, the way he lived out his life, yeah! Take some! Right? That is the attitude that Paul had, right? Where you couldn't help but to notice, like, whoa, this guy is fizzing everywhere. This guy is making so much noise where, like, you couldn't even contain it. It's fizzing so much that you're trying to cover it up, but he says, you can't contain me, right? People that tried to stone him to death, right? Like, hey, he's fizzing everywhere, and they tried to snuff it and cap him up, and then sure enough, you know, there's these wonderful scenes where he got stoned, and everyone thought he was dead, and he came back up, and he's bloody everywhere, right? And he's like, yeah! Right? He couldn't help but to walk around and fizz everywhere, right? And I'm wondering when it comes to your relationship with God, do you fizz enough to the point where it's noticeable? Every move that you make when it comes to this, see, I don't know how they did it. I don't know how Coke did it. If you really think about it, all Coke is they put some food coloring in there where it's dark, and they add some carbonation, and they just put a mound of sugar. You're brainwashed. Like, really, what's so good about this? Right? If you go to Peru, they have this thing where they actually still have Coke, but they try to bring their own version, and it's called Inca Cola, right? They're brainwashed too, right? They went to Peru, and they say, oh, this must be the Peruvian version of Coca-Cola, right? But Coke is still there, right? They advertise well, but Inca Cola is there, and they drink of it, and they go, oh, yeah, so great. Honestly, that is the nastiest thing I've ever tasted in my life. Brainwashed right now, right? So if they had a can of Inca Cola, they'll say, you gotta try some of this. But if you really think about it, whether it's Coca-Cola, Inca Cola, RNC Cola, Shasta Cola, Pepsi Cola, all the colas really, they taste like dirty sugar water, right? And Coca-Cola is literally a multi-million-dollar company. It's amazing how they're that productive with a product that is so bad for your body. What Paul does not seem to understand is he says, you've got a gospel message that is so powerful that it not only betters your life, but it betters your soul. He says, you've got such a powerful message in this gospel. He says, why do we act as though we're ashamed? Why do we cover it up as if this is something to be embarrassed of? And the reason why I bring this message to you at this moment of your life is because this past week you just started school. And every one of you guys will have a choice to make. People might know you as a Christian or people might not. But it's not about whether they know you as a Christian or not. But it's a matter of whether, are you so confident of this gospel message that you're more than happy and willing to share this? If I felt as though this product was literally like not enjoyable for it, I wouldn't have given it to these two guys, right? They enjoy it. Even as I speak, Andrew is like, he's enjoying this drink. But my desire and prayer is that every single one of you would enjoy who God is, but enjoy this message called the gospel, because Jesus is truly what he calls the way, truth, and the life. Jesus himself says, no man comes to the Father except through me. And he says this, and Paul says that gospel message is so precious that he says, I'm willing to put my life on it. I'm willing to die for it. And guess what? He died for it. He died on behalf of the gospel and presenting that. Do you know, even as we speak, see, we took 14 people who are currently walking away to do a presentation for the adults. Took 14 people, and we came back safely. But there are literally hundreds of people, even as we speak, that are out there in the mission field, and they don't have a can of Coke on them. They have the message of the gospel in their heart, and they walk the earth preaching much like this man Paul did. And they're fizzing even to the point of death because they believe that this would save souls and this will save lives. I encourage you, brothers and sisters, step onto your school campus with a great confidence in that you got your Heavenly Father backing you up. Now, the Bible itself says that there's going to be hardship that comes your way. Matthew 5 talks about it. It says that people might persecute you and treat you in ways that you might not like to be treated, but to you, that shouldn't be a factor. Your embarrassment should not be a factor, because if you being embarrassed in some way will help your friend be saved, you should say, hey, that's worth it. But if you being embarrassed is actually more important than you seeing your friend's soul being sent to hell, then there's something wrong with you. And I realize there are more people within this Christian circle that profess Christ in church but hide Christ outside of church. My prayer is that every single one of us here would be people who would be so confident of who we have in our lives, the most precious gift, the Son of God, that you be more than happy, that it cannot be and cannot be contained, and that you would step onto your school campus and say, I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God to what? To save. For who? For all. It doesn't say save only the Koreans. It doesn't say save only the Chinese. It says save Jews and Gentiles, non-Jews alike. It says that's for every single person. And here's the challenge. A new school year has started, and we once filled the seat just not too long ago, but there are plenty of empty seats. Your prayer ought to be, God, use me that I could bring people into the church, that they could have a saving relationship. If that's not something that you can pray, then you might be praying this: God, let me know who you are. Let me understand the gospel message. Help me to understand how important this message is, so that I would actually become a true believer. Because if you are a true believer, believe me, this message will not and cannot be contained inside. It's got too much, and you will have to fizz out. And right now, if you can bow your heads with me, I challenge you to invite God and say, God, where's my heart at? Have I been confident of who you are in my life? Am I so bold and confident in who you are that I am more than happy and willing? I can't help but to share this gospel message with my friends. Even if my friends might think I'm a bit strange, I'll do so, setting aside my reputation for the sake and benefit of bringing more people into your kingdom. If you pray with that attitude, if you pray with that desire, I guarantee you God will use you to fill these rooms. And it's not because of your doing, it's because God is working mightily in you.
이 프로그램은 선교지의 교회를 세우는 힘찬 첫걸음, 드림온과 함께합니다.